Hey guys, Adam here from Adam Warren Media, and today we're going to be editing a brand new image in Lightroom. Let's go. So let's enter Lightroom, and what we're going to do is, this was an image that I created and uploaded to Instagram not long ago. It was taken in Paris, Café Le Louis Philippe, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how what settings that I used to basically create this this edit and post-process it, and how you can use your own images along with similar settings, just to kind of give you an idea of the fundamentals, the specific tools in Lightroom that will allow you to do this and to basically take your images to the next level. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the crop tool. I'm just going to hit R on the keyboard, and I usually put it at a 4:5, and this can be amended later on if you'd like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the bike specifically around the foreground, and then we've got some like midground and some interest, and it just makes the image stand out that little bit more, and it's easier on the eye, then it makes it less flat as well. So I'm just going to hit enter, and that looks okay for now. Obviously it's very harsh around the highlights, especially if you take photos in the middle of the day and it's fairly sunny. You're going to get a lot of shadow, a lot of very bright light around here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of neutralize that a little bit so it's easier on the eye, and that we bring more back, more detail into the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly reduce the exposure. Sorry, I'm going to increase the exposure rather, and I'll just slightly bring a little bit more detail. The main thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make more contrast into the image, and as I say, just make it a bit less harsh. So I'm going to take down the highlights quite a bit. As I say, it just really, these brightish areas you can see are a little bit harsh. I'm going to bring that right down, and then I'm going to just bring up the shadow so we can bring more detail back into this area, and really show the viewer what we actually saw, when we took the image. So I'm going to put that right up. Keep that going there for now, and you can see just what a difference it's made with just a couple of adjustments. That was before, this is after. So let's keep going, and that just increases the contrast. It improves the dynamic range. You can see beforehand the image now has a lot of detail around the midtones, some of the shadows, some of the highlights, and that's almost an ideal histogram, although it completely depends on the image itself. So I'm going to continue on with that. I'm also going to bring the white point down a little bit, and this again just helps reduce the highlights and just makes the image a bit less harsh in terms of the brightest parts of it. And I'm just going to increase the black slightly as well, and that will again just add some more contrast. Then we're going to come down to the tone curve. So I'm not going to do too much. I'm going to maybe slightly take the contrast that little bit further, just by bringing down the shadows a little and just bringing the highlights up a tad, and then maybe just bring the white point down a little bit as well. So this is the brightest part of the image right here, and I'm just going to take that down just a touch. And then I'm also going to go over to the blues, and what I want to do is I want to increase the blues a little bit more. So I'm just going to go to the blues channel, and then specifically in the highlights. So this is the whites, these are the highlights, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take specifically the highlights that are quite white and yellowish. I'm going to try and get that to be a bit more blue. So we're just basically increasing the blue tones ever so slightly, and you can see that I think just adds a bit more interest. There's a lot of blue already in the image, and depending on where you want to take your image itself, it can really make a difference. So we're going to do that for now. Again, I'm not going to do too much. There's not much dehazing that's required, or clarity. We could take the vibrance up a touch to really bring out some of the other colours a little bit. Vibrance is great because the areas that are already saturated it will ignore, and it will just focus on the tones that aren't. Saturation will just take up every colour further. So we've already got some saturated colour here, we don't want to take it further, so that's where I'll use vibrance. So again, I'm going to take the colour to the next level. I'm going to come right the way down to calibration, and I'm going to move the blue primary a little bit more towards the teal, and that's just sort of my personal preference on this. Let's just take that a bit further on. And now quite like that. I'm going to leave the split toning for now. I think that's okay. We're going to just look at the different areas. So hue, saturation, luminance. Hue will change the actual tonal range. It will change the colour itself and affect them that way. So you can go sort of more from oranges, more towards reds, etc. Should we reset that? Saturation will increase the intensity of that particular colour tone. And the luminance will brighten that specific part, that specific colour. So, in terms of this, sometimes it's better to just have a look at the image before you make the changes and just sort of see, well, what would look good. I want this to primarily be more blue orientated, so I'm going to take down the reds a little bit, and I'm going to come into the saturation, and again I'm going to increase the aquas, so you can really see that lift from before. And then I'm also going to take it the blues as well a little bit. The reason I'm doing this is because it will, if you just take one colour up and one colour up here, one there, and you don't gradually put them up with the other colours like this, if I just did that, eventually it'll create a lot of artifacting, a lot of noise in particular parts, and that's very difficult to get back later. So I'm going to do that. I'm taking up the blues, taking up the aquas, and let's just bring down the greens, because I feel like these are competing a little bit with the blues, and I want the blue to be the primary focus here. So let's bring this down quite a bit. And all that's really done is just taken the intensity out of these colours and brought the viewer's eye more towards this and the bike. So yeah, I mean that's okay with me. I might also just bring up the reds a little bit because I quite like these colours along the front. I think the red and the blue will be quite complementary in terms of saturation. So let's just take that up. Yeah, I think that looks better. Sometimes it's good to have a background or a secondary main colour in the image. Again, just look what you would like. So I quite like that overall. This was before, this was after, and then I'm just going to finish this off with a bit of sharpening as well. So what I'm going to do is just going to bring the mask. So I hold down Option or Alt on a Windows keyboard, and I'm just going to drag, and whatever's white is the area that will be affected by the sharpening. So if you don't want everything to be white like this, you're going to bring the masking tool across, and it will only sharpen what's actually shown as a mask. So I think that's about right. And then once you've done that, just take the sharpness up to where you think it should go. I usually look at this square here to really see the difference, and then you can just turn it off and on to see what difference specifically is being made to the sharpening by just clicking this. And this was after. You can also take this little tool here and move it around to really see a specific part of where it's been sharpened or not. So again, you click on that, turn it off, turn it back on, and you can see more definition in these lines straight away. So that's something that I'll always do if I am sharpening, just so you can really see what's been affected before and after. It also works great with words, so I could have done it here or here as well. But I quite like this image as well. I mean, you can again continue with things like graduated filters, you can maybe brighten the shadows or add a color toning effect, but when it's sometimes less is more, you don't need to go further just for the sake of it. Be selective with the tools that you've got, and you know, on the back of that, you'll use them to the best of your ability. It's knowing what they are in the background and then deciding specifically on what you think will make that difference. So that's what I've done with today's image. I hope you liked it. If you did, please hit the like, and if you want to see more of my videos, feel free to subscribe as well. Also, let me know what you thought in the comments section, if there's any specific tools that you'd like me to talk about, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.